presenter is Professor Dr. Faruk Karaca. He will talk about the Hajj motivations and some
Hac motivasyonları bağlamında
recommendations about the preparation of uh,
tabii haccın kendisi tek başına bir
Hajj.
motivasyon olarak
And we would like to hear our professor. Thanks a lot. I would like to thank the organization, and I would like to extend my greetings to all of you there. And my presentation is about the motivations of Hajj. And Hajj and Umrah worship has many effects on being religious. So this was actually a project which we have finished a year ago. Within this project, we have developed six scales. The first one is about the Hajj motivations, and the other was and the factors related to this to this Hajj um, motivation. And so, as you all know, Hajj worship is when compared to the other worships in Islam, is a very different one, because in the other worship types, such a length of time duration that does not exist, and no preparation is needed in the other worship types, and none of them triggers consciousness as much as Hajj. And the other uh, in the other worships, there is no the factor of memory. Uh, so it has a very distinctive place among the other worship types. And this worship is not a worship by itself, but it also includes the other worship types, because in Islam, uh, all, it includes prayers, giving money to the poor people, and all the worship types are included in Hajj. So it awakens the religious consciousness, and this potential should be exercised in a functional way. The previous speaker talked about these in details, but how much of these can be realized? Something is theoretically applicable, but it doesn't mean that it will be applicable in practice. So this Hajj worship has a very great potential, and it contributes to the development of mankind. So we have to focus on this point. Our research was carried on 420 thousand people that would be in Hajj, and we are not going to talk about Umrah. This test was carried out on the basis of voluntariness and motivation. And we also administered attitude scale, motivation scale, and so the total number of the people were 420, and so there were the age groups. Most of them were at the adult age, that is 36 to 45, or from 45 to 54, and also above 54 there were people, and these were the people from Turkey, and the average of the ages from Turkey was older than the other nations' ages, and most of them were married. So the rest were bachelor. 44% was a graduate of primary school. The lycée graduates were 24%, and the university graduates were 18%. For the socio-economical position, the ones who are below the average was 7%. The others were below are not below the average, they were above the average. So the top point is 40 in the motivation scale, and the Hajis received 35 at the average. So this means that the motivation is pretty high in Turkish Hajis. And material maturity, meşakkat, overcoming the hardships, sort of things are very high in the Turkish group. So the attitudes who have desired attitudes have been seen to be motivated. So attitude and motivation was related, and if their motivations are high, the attitudes committed were very desired. And when we compare this according to the regions, Black Sea, Aegean, and southern part, they have higher motivations. To explain this is not very possible. Why? But in the motivations and in the preparations, we also made a difference, and we can see the level appearing very evidently in the preparations. So they had better preparations. As for the sex, the motivation of the woman were higher than the men, and but the difference between them was not significant. The 36-45 age uh, is found to be wrong, but we later, the middle age was later redefined. That is between 36 and 55, and it is the personal maturity age, and this brings forth the religious maturity as well. So the motivation in these were higher than the other groups. So it is not very surprising. As for the bodily situation, the motivation of the older people is a bit lower, and also the people who were alone in the Hajj were lower in motivation, because it's a very long journey, and meshakkat, hardships are present in the journey. So they may be feeling not well during the journey. The education level is very low. The people who are going to Hajj are not there. They don't have higher level of education. So when we see the education level, the graduates of primary school, graduates have higher motivation. And this is perhaps related to the education in religion. So when the people get educated, the religious motivation gets lower. So there are other researchers which also support this event.
Son 3 dakikanız.
So as I have little time, what we can do, I will tell you. The motivation of Hajj is generally high, but this doesn't mean that you can realize it in the best way. So we have to do much more things to make the motivation higher, and these results showed that higher motivation will last in better psychological outcomes. And the Hajj candidates may have the motivation higher, but they have lots of fallacies, or they don't have enough, they cannot apply enough meaning to the worships carried out in Hajj. So they are engaged in the journey more than what they have to do and feel, and their responsibilities and feelings that they have to gain there. So the education should also include motivation. It's not the motivation by itself, but the motivation should also include patience and the other tefekkür and the other factors of motivation related to Hajj. it is not only a journey, but in this journey they learn a lot of things, and they should be able to convey these to their own lives. And preparing for Hajj is not enough. There is 1 or 1.5 time period, 1.5 month time period after the ending of the Hajj. The education should be carried out about the meaning of Hajj. And as we have said before, the surahs and the namaz in the prayers should be explained to the people through seminars, and we should make people understand what is in the surahs of Quran. And of course, there were some organizational difficulties while carrying out this worship. The organization should be in a quality way. Of course, we are trying our best to provide the quality one, and the seminars are given in the sense to educate people before going to Hajj. But before Hajj and after Hajj, there should be a package education program to be given to the people. These people should be trained with a package education program, which is very well planned and expert. Not only the people in the religious affairs, but also the people, the experts of this should be invited to talk to these peoples, to prepare them for the Hajj environment. So the potential can be used in a better way. It is not so hard to realize this goal. So higher psychological outcomes may come out of this endeavor. Thank you very much to our speaker, Professor Dr. Faruk Karaca.